Are your colors ending up muddy when you create digital art? You're not alone. There could be several reasons for that, which I'll explain today, while sharing some tips for how to get mixtures of color that are more intentional. First, let's define muddy colors. A muddy color is an intermediate color created by mixing two or more incompatible colors. The characteristics of a muddy color are a dull or desaturated appearance, an unexpected shift in hue, and increased darkness. Brown is the quintessential example of a muddy color, but you can also make all sorts of colors that are dull. Obviously, choosing desaturated or dark colors can result in muddy mixtures of colors, but don't avoid these colors. They are just as essential for art as the vibrant colors. Without grays, browns, and other colors, art would be missing a lot of the color palette available in real life. On their own, these colors may be unappealing, but within the context of a painting surrounded by other colors, they might not be so bad. In fact, dull colors can help other colors around them appear brighter. In other cases, desaturated colors fit better into certain schemes or more accurately represent reality. So, in addition to learning how to avoid muddy colors, I hope this tutorial will give you a better appreciation and understanding of how to make muddy colors on purpose. Before you can understand why colors mix the way they do on a computer, it's important to understand the difference between additive color and subtractive color models, which are two different ways of combining colors to create a new color. Additive color is created when light projects into our eyes. This is made by combining various amounts of red, green, and blue light. This is commonly referred to as RGB, and it's the model used by TVs, computer monitors, and other electronic displays. When equal amounts of red, green, and blue are combined, the result is white light. This is because the different colors of light are added together, which creates a broader spectrum of light that our eyes perceive as white. This behavior is the opposite of what most traditional artists have learned, and that is colors combine to become darker. But that's a different color model known as subtractive. In the subtractive model, colors are created by mixing different pigments or inks together. This is the model used in printing and painting. In this model, when you mix the primary colors of cyan, magenta, and yellow together, you get black. This is because the different pigments absorb or subtract different wavelengths of light, which results in less light being reflected back into our eyes, and therefore a darker color. For example, when you see a red apple in real life, that's because all but the red wavelengths of light were absorbed by the apple's surface. The same applies to a traditional painting of an apple. When you look at a digital painting of an apple, you are seeing only red light because that is what is being projected. Because they are made from projected light, colors always appear brighter and more vibrant when viewed as additive color, especially white, which is very dull in comparison when viewed subtractively as paint on a physical canvas. Conversely, blacks are richer in the subtractive model because little to no light is being reflected. The backlight of many additive color displays make it difficult to show a rich black. Since traditional art color mixing is based on a subtractive model, the properties of additive colors make it challenging to emulate those mixtures. For example, mixing yellow and blue in a subtractive color model gives you green, but you get gray when doing it on a computer. This gray muddies up the color as it mixes. For this reason, I would avoid trying to blend any complementary colors. That's colors that are opposite to each other on the color wheel. That is, unless your app supports advanced color modes like real color mixing, where red, yellow, and blue are the primary colors, rather than red, green, and blue. Hopefully more art applications will adopt this method because it is much more intuitive and yields better mixtures. The brightness of additive color is another factor that makes it more difficult to choose digital colors that will mix nicely. For example, you might think all of the hues in the hue ring are of equal brightness. Well, in most art applications, they aren't. This means that if you're trying to paint with hues of equal brightness, it will be very difficult, unless you view the artwork in grayscale. As you can see, indigo blue is much darker than yellow. This contrast can darken or muddy up the color mixture as well. In recent years, art apps have begun adopting color models that better resemble how humans perceive the intensity and brightness of colors. The HSL, HSV, HSI, HSY, and HSL-UV color models are all variations of the standard RGB color model used to describe and specify colors in digital art. HSL stands for hue, saturation, and lightness, and it is a way of representing colors in terms of their hue, saturation, and lightness values. HSV stands for hue, saturation, and value. It is similar to HSL. HSI stands for hue, saturation, and intensity, and it is a color model that is similar to HSV and HSL, but it uses the intensity of a color instead of its value or lightness. HSLUV is a color model that is based on the color perception of the human eye. It also uses hue, saturation, and lightness values to describe colors. The HSY model uses hue, saturation, and luma, which is similar to lightness. The HSI, HSY, and HSLUV are newer color models, and you'll find that the hues are much more uniform and allow you to more accurately choose color. If I select that same yellow and choose the complementary blue across from it, now when I mix these two colors, I get a smoother transition compared to the previous example. You can see how much the brightness or value slider moves when I sample across the color transitions. Another way to visualize this is to use the square mode for the color picker. See how the color target stays mostly on the horizontal axis and does not move up or down very much when I use colors that are closer in brightness? That jumpy vertical movement in the second example indicates how the color is struggling to transition smoothly. This results in a mixture that looks unappealing or out of place. I'll return to the circular mode. You can even use these principles to mix two desaturated colors together without them getting muddier. In addition to mixing two opaque colors together, you can also layer transparent colors to create mixtures using blend modes. Blend modes can be applied to both layers and brush dabs individually. Most commonly, you would use multiply, which blends darker when colors overlap. That sounds a lot like how subtractive color works. As you can see, if I compare the overlapping primary colors for each mode with both the default and multiply blend modes, the final mixture of color can be more or less muddy depending on the combination of colors and blend modes. Whether you are using multiply with RGB or cyan, magenta, and yellow, the final mixture is noticeably muddier and less saturated. However, some color combinations like cyan and yellow, though less saturated, appear less muddy because they mix closer to how you would expect them to in traditional art. So be careful when using multiply, because it can quickly build up dark or muddy colors if you mix too many colors together. You can also try using a different mode like color burn, which can be a bit more vibrant than even the default mode, while giving you that darker buildup effect. Just as well, if we view this all in grayscale, you can see that RGB creates darker mixtures of color compared to CMY. In additive color, we should get white when we combine all of the colors, and we do if we use the screen blend mode. Mixing colors this way is sort of counterintuitive, since we usually shade by building up darker colors. So keep in mind that if part of your colors being muddy is that they're blending darker, it could be because you're using colors that naturally blend darker. Try substituting red for magenta or blue for cyan, and it will give you a brighter result. To summarize, choosing pleasant color mixtures boils down to starting with an accurate mixing mode and not putting too much distance between your colors on the hue ring or the brightness scale. But how else can we avoid mixing incompatible colors? One solution to all of these colors competing with each other is to use a limited color palette. Analogous colors are hues that are next to each other on the color wheel. Orange, yellow, and red are an example. As you can see, if I mix these, the result is still very vibrant. Same goes for mixing cool analogous colors. But if I mix in a color from the other side of the wheel that is not analogous, the mixture becomes much duller. The closer it is to the original colors, the more vibrant the mixture will be. The farther away it is, the duller it will be. Just as well, mixing secondary colors like purple, orange, and green will result in muddy colors, as will mixing tertiary colors like yellow-green, aqua, and yellow-orange. Mixing warm and cool hues can give you duller colors sometimes, but not always. For example, yellow and indigo will make gray, but red and indigo make a somewhat vibrant purple. This is because red and indigo are closer in brightness and hue, so the transition does not become as dull. Skipping over intermediate primary colors like red, green, and blue, or cyan, magenta, and yellow is what's making the color duller. For example, going from yellow to blue skips over green and cyan. But if I go from yellow to cyan, I am only skipping green, so the mixture remains more vibrant. So the point is that the more colors you use, the more likely it will be that they will mix in a way that you're not happy with. I would recommend using layers to test out mixtures of colors. This way you can experiment freely without ruining the progress you're happy with in your artwork. There you have it, some tips for how to get colors that are vibrant and mix together nicely rather than being too dull or muddy. If you enjoyed this lesson, be sure to become a member and subscribe for more digital art videos like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.